If you're struggling like me to feel as if peaceful protesting and kind of like nonviolence actually has a legacy and can get us out of where we are, this reading is for you. The cards that showed up are beautiful, here to help us to have faith in this peaceful movement, to remember how we can keep our vibration high so that we can get our voice heard, even if it is peaceful and even if it is quieter than some of the more loud and violent voices that we're hearing. Let's dive in. For today's video, we are going to talk about, interesting, strength. Strength is going to be the theme of this video. Strength is a major arcana, and it's about basically soft power. It's about basically using persuasion and nonviolence to get things done, to be able to actually have a lot of force, but by using kind of like more softer ways. Like in this card, we see this lion, and we know that this lion has the strength to completely destruct and completely shred that rose to pieces. But it can be very tender, and it's sometimes knowing your strength so that you can get things done, but not having to necessarily use force. So in which direction is that going to go? Let's have a look. So the focus of this video is going to be, okay, interesting, the 10 of Pentacles. So I find that this is telling an interesting story here, which is the 10 of Pentacles is all about legacy and what you're going to be leaving behind. And kind of like you build up and you work all your life for something, and then you have this kind of culmination. And what I'm getting here is that what's the legacy of the soft power? What is the long-term reality? Is it possible? Does soft power and nonviolence and kind of peaceful protesting have a legacy? Is it possible that it actually leaves something in the future? And goodness knows, that is actually something that I am definitely going through these days, because I find that it's very difficult these days to sometimes believe in the peacefulness and kind of a peaceful revolution. There is so much going on, and there's so many things that I find are like, because I always believed and believe in peaceful revolutions and protests. Like I always admired the civil rights movements, or Gandhi's non-violent movement in India. I always found that they were so moving and they really brought me a lot. But sometimes these days I'm really wondering if it's possible to actually get real change in what we're going through. And sometimes I actually even catch myself doing things or feeling things that are really kind of in opposition to who I want to be or who I believe I am. Like, for example, when that CEO of the insurance, the medical insurance, got killed, I couldn't believe my reaction. My first reaction was, oh, good, he deserved it. I do not believe in the death of anybody. I do not want to go down that road. And so I was like, wow, how is it that that was my first reaction, and how is it that I'm kind of leaning towards that way? And it's scary. Also recently, like a friend of mine's child was being bullied at school for a really long time, and the school wasn't really doing anything about it. And at one point, the child actually hit the bully. And my reaction again was, yeah, good for that child. But do I want to condone violence? No, that's not who I want to be, and that's not who I choose to be. So what is going on here? Anyway, so I think that this reading is going to be super interesting about the legacy of soft power. Is it possible to even like have a revolution? Like, I'm hearing about all these things happening, like peaceful protesters being, shot, people being taken off the street, like their rights not being like taken seriously. I was listening to this podcast, This American Life, and one of the people was calling the police and saying, what can I do legally if I get abducted? Like, do I have a right to fight back? Like, when does nonviolence becomes self-defense. Like when, like right now, sometimes it feels as if the bad people are winning because they don't abide by any of the laws. Like the laws are not there. The laws are there. The laws are there not to of non-violence, but sometimes I feel like some people aren't actually following those laws. Anyway, end of rant, but I think this reading will be super interesting, especially if you're like me and you're kind of caught like wanting to still believe in nonviolence, wanting to believe and trust that like there can be a legacy there, that it can have long-lasting effects, and how to kind of like deal with our mixed emotions. Let's have a look. So I want to pick some cards about how can we have our voice be heard, because that's sometimes what I feel it is. I just feel like our voices of this, the non-violent is drowned out sometimes. So how can we have our voice be heard? Okay, I want to pick 3 cards for that. So we got the Ace of Cups, the Six of Pentacles, and the Father of Pentacles. So let's look at them all once each by themselves, and then we'll pull them together. So the Ace of Cups, interesting. How can we let our voice be heard? Well, the Ace of Cups is about new beginnings, and cups are about relationships. So it's about also being creative, maybe. So how to let our voice be heard? It's about being creative, maybe in the way that we express our voice. I also think it's about our emotions and getting in touch with our deep emotions. Maybe it's about telling stories that have deep emotional and real people behind them, so it can be very meaningful, so that you really feel something when it's a real story, and touching on an emotion, you can get a story across a lot better. I also think it's about like exactly being creative, and you can still be nonviolent, but maybe bypassing certain things. Like I'm thinking a little bit about the Me Too movement and how it remained nonviolent, but it also was kind of doing things a little bit in a different way, because in the past, if you had a problem with somebody, you had to go through the court system. But we realized that sometimes the court system wasn't actually being very good to the victims because it was taking too long. And in the end, the perpetrators were just able to run free for 10 years until it would be brought to court. And even then, maybe you wouldn't even be able to bring it to court because you had no evidence. And so what I liked about the Me Too movement was that it was very creative, because it was nonviolent, but it was very effective. And I actually think that this card holds a clue too, because sometimes I feel like we think that our voice is just by itself. It's like we're pouring, like I love this card because it's almost like the voice might be that yellow light coming out of the cup. And sometimes when we shine our voice or get our voice out, it's not always, it feels like it's so small. But if we're a lot of people shining out that light, can you imagine if we're all many people? I think it's also about like coming together as a community, and really like being creative as a community to get our voices heard. So the second card is the Six of Pentacles, and the Six of Pentacles is all about giving and receiving. And it's about kind of like dosing things. And so I find sometimes maybe to get our voice heard, it's about dosing things and like kind of knowing when to give and when to push in a certain direction, and what you're just gonna like not be concerned about. Like not all the battles can be grown. I also think that this particular card in this deck, it's like showing this branch, and it's almost like waiting till those pentacles are ripe. And sometimes I think that our ideas are needing to ripen. And so to trust sometimes that like, even if you're doubting that it sometimes we need to wait for that kind of like idea or that kind of nonviolent revolution to be fruitful, to be ripened, so that it can actually come into effect. But more than that, Six of Pentacles do have to do with, finances and careers. And I think it's also about giving and receiving, and looking at where are you giving in the end. Like, I know personally, this one is actually coming as like a kind of like a pointer, but where are you spending your money? Where are you putting, what platform are you on? Like I recently was watching a podcast, and it was talking about the fact that, like Gmail is, the people who are in charge of Gmail is not very good. They're corrupt. Meta, oh my gosh. And yet, look, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and I use Amazon. I supposedly, Spotify is no good anymore because it's like the founders sometimes are spending tons of money. ChatGPT, I just found out, is giving tons of money to an administration that I do not agree with. So, and at the same time, it's like in my head, I'm like, yeah, but I'm only using ChatGPT a little bit. And, I have Gmail, and like I have like, 10 years of being on Gmail. And, where else am I going to go than Amazon to buy something? Like, sure, I can go to the shop, but it's like a lot more expensive. But at the end, like I keep giving myself excuses, and I don't think I need to stop everything. Like also, like after this video, it's not like I'm going to be able to stop everything. I'm still on Instagram. I'd like to get off eventually, and same with Facebook, but I'm actually also developing myself as a new person, a content creator. But maybe there's another option. It's almost like put your money where your mouth is and be aware of where you're putting your money. And that in the end, we have a big power with our spending dollars. Like that's another thing. I was watching this other video on Instagram, and it was just talking about the fact that it's not the left or the right, it's the elite that are above the law. And we've seen this with the Epstein files. It goes on both sides of the political spectrum. And yet we, with our purchasing power, can have huge effects. Again, if we do it as a collective, as a community, one person doing it is not going to change much, but together it changes a lot. Anyway, this is one that I'm definitely going to be thinking about. And at the same time, like a messy room, you get in and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to clean up this huge messy room? I think you have to start small and not get overwhelmed. I'm not going to be able to change my Gmail right away. I'm not going to be able to get off Instagram and Facebook and Spotify and stop using Waze and stop using ChatGPT right away. I mean, I've already started using Claude instead, but who knows? Is Claude ever better? I don't know. Anyway, all that to say is though that eventually I'm going to start like doing small things and, managing my giving and receiving, but also start small and like not get overwhelmed and think I have to do it all at the same time. And the last card, we got the Father of Pentacles. And actually, I think the Father of Pentacles kind of reflects back on this one that we just mentioned, because the Father of Pentacles is somebody who's very kind of like sovereign. It's somebody who is financially independent and kind of like just very grounded and able to kind of like be very in line with its values. And again, like that's what I'm saying. I'm saying sometimes I give myself excuses like, oh yeah, but I need Instagram to get myself like to develop and to get myself known. And I have so many excuses. But the Father of Pentacles is somebody who is very kind of like aligned and very grounded and very kind of like has a lot of integrity. And so to me, it's about kind of like remembering to not like have too many excuses. Like it's okay to have excuses, but then to be aware of them. I also think it's about having financial independence. The Father of Pentacles is definitely somebody who's financially independent. And so when you are financially independent, you're also able to make choices that are more in alignment with who you are. Like, for example, I see a lot of people are like, yeah, but I can't quit my job. I need to pay the bills. I need to pay the rent. And that is so fair enough. I get it. Because we do have bills to pay and things to do, but the more you're financially independent and the more you're not actually part of that system, the more you will have financial, more freedom actually. I also think though, in this card, there's like a visual aspect of it, and it's those antlers that are in those color. And it's like how to get your voice heard. I also think it's about doing things in a way that's different and creative. Again, it goes back to the creativity of the Ace of Cups. But it's like, some people, they don't want to go and protest in the street, and that's totally fair enough. I don't do that, but there's other ways to protest. Like, for example, this deer seems to have protests by like coloring its antlers and like kind of showing a sign. There's so many different things that we can do. And it's like about being creative and remembering that we can get our voice heard by being creative and doing things a little bit differently. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's voice, even if our voices are going to be coming together, but we can all do it in different ways. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway, to end this reading, I want to pull a couple cards just on like what we can do to keep the faith, keep having faith in the nonviolent and peaceful protesting, and know that in the end, like, because that's the thing, is if we do give in to the violence, and if we do kind of say like, well, look, they're doing it, that I want to do it, and like, well, then what is the legacy that we're going to be leaving? Does the end justify the means? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that if I do things that are so out of alignment with myself just to be able to get what I want, I'm not sure I'm going to like the legacy I leave, or the legacy I even build towards. So how can we keep the faith? How can we keep the faith in this nonviolence and peacefulness, and remembering that it is okay and that we will make it? Okay, we got two cards. We got the Nine of Swords and the World card, another major arcana. So the Nine of Swords is about everything that keeps us up at night. Our anxieties, our fears, our things that are kind of like worrying us. And I guess it's the worry of like, maybe where's our world going? Where's our society? Where's our democracy going? But I think it's also about kind of taking a closer look, and again, looking at yourself and asking yourself, where do you participate in this to a certain extent? Like, it's not like you're the big bad person, but to a certain extent, we also have a little role. Even if it's small, we're still playing in a little role. And it's taking a look at yourself in the mirror and realizing that keeping the faith doesn't mean that you don't have anxieties. But it's also about looking in the mirror and seeing some of the things that you might be able to change. And again, I don't think it's about ripping out each one of these swords all together. Like as I was saying about like Gmail or like all the other things I want to get off. I think it's about like thinking, okay, maybe I'll start with one sword. Maybe I'll start by stopping shopping on Amazon. And I'll try that for a bit and see if then I can build on that. And then maybe the next time I'll see if there's not another email thing that I could go and change. And I think it's about baby steps, but I also think it's about looking in the mirror and not like shying away from this, not shying away even from maybe that part of myself that scares me, the part of myself that I don't really like, that said, oh, I was kind of happy when that person was killed. Like looking at that and thinking, okay, wow, like I've gotten to a certain place that I either need to address that, or I need to come to terms with that, and not shy away from some of the things that scare myself, and then actually use those to work on myself. But I think also this card is beautiful as an ending card, because the World is the last of the major arcana, and it talks about cycles, and it talks about endings and beginnings, and the fact that like they're cycles. And so right now, as much as we can be going through an anxious period, it's a cycle. And this is also saying that like all that we're going through, it will change. Like, we tend to kind of like maybe over exaggerate and be like, oh my God, like the peaceful protesting is not working. But in the end, like that, even that anxiety or that fear is just part of a cycle, and that it will go and it will change, and that we will be able to learn through this process. I also think it's about learning through this cycle, learning through everything that we have learned during this last, whatever we're going through, to be able to maybe create a new cycle that is healthier, that doesn't have these, problems or things like that, so that we can actually get to a better place. And so I think it's about trusting that like things come, things go, and just remembering that we're going to be learning, because this card is also about using what we've learned in the last cycle to be able to grow into something bigger and better. And I'm really wanting that bigger and better to include soft power, and that I can trust that the soft power will still be there. So on this, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter as we go through these crazy times. Please let me know in the comments how you feel about this, how you feel about the nonviolence and the peaceful protesting, and whether you think it has a legacy. And tell me also about your tips of what you're doing to get your peaceful voice out there to be heard. I'd love to hear. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next video.